What is going on, Sports Wars? We are here to talk UFC 266. Tonight, it looks to be a loaded main card with a couple interesting things in the prelims. And we have the man T-Rev here to talk about all his thoughts about a couple of these interesting fights and what we might see tonight. T-Rev, how's it going, man?
It's going good, Ryan. I'm really excited for this one. Definitely not like the best pay-per-view that we have over the remainder of the year, but it's a pretty good one.
It is, and especially, you got two titles on the line, although I don't think anyone has any thoughts about one of them specifically changing hands. But some interesting people, obviously Nick Diaz making his return to UFC. That's got a lot of people talking. But one prelim fight that we're going to start with before we move into all the different main events is going to be this one. Dan Hooker versus, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Haqparast, yeah. So there it is. So what do you think about this fight? I know you're a Dan Hooker fan.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to make sure we cover this one. Dan Hooker is one of my favorite fighters. He is so respectful. He's a knockout artist. If you haven't seen his highlights on YouTube, go to YouTube, type in Dan Hooker top finishes. And one of the main things I love about this guy is that, there's so much disrespect in combat sports, the UFC. Very often you'll see a guy knock his opponent out and then trash talk his unconscious body. I'm just not really about that, man. Dan Hooker, he'll knock a guy out, and then he'll go and just stand in the neutral corner and just put his hands in front of him. He's so respectful. He's a true martial artist, and that's why I really like this guy.
Nice. What do you think about this fight? Do you think he's going to have any problems? What do you think about the matchup in general?
I have faith in him. I think he's going to win. I don't know much about Haqparast. I've seen he's won 5 out of his last 6, but I definitely pick Dan Hooker to win this one. And there's also some craziness surrounding this fight. I don't know if you know this, but Dan Hooker, he fights out of New Zealand. Obviously, we know what's going on over in the oceanic countries with the lockdowns right now. He was kicked out of his training gym by the police, and he had to train in I think it was in his garage over the past few months. And New Zealand wasn't going to let him have a fight visa so that he could come over here and fight. But he went to Twitter. He said, guys, make some noise. I need your help. And tons of UFC fans tweeted at the New Zealand embassy and finally got them to crack and give him his visa. And so they're making the fight happen. And, just so much for him to go through.
Yeah, now that you say that, I do remember something. I didn't realize that was Dan Hooker, but I remember people making noise about that. So there you go. A little bit of background on that story for sure, man. So that's going to be in the prelims. But the main card, we've got Jessica Andrade versus Cynthia Calvillo. Now, Andrade, I feel like we've seen Jessica Andrade for so long. She's fought 30 fights, 21-9. But a lot of those losses have come in her last several fights. She's only won 1 of her last, I think, 5 bouts, somewhere around there. So Jessica Andrade really fallen off when it comes to her career. Do you have any thoughts about this fight in general?
Yeah, is this at what's 115? Is this at strawweight?
I think it's a 134.
130.
They got them both listed at 134. So.
Oh, well, that's probably the weight class is 135, but it probably means that they cut down to 134. But she's going all the way up to bantamweight.
Yep.
Wow, that's a huge increase for her. Okay, I didn't realize the weight class that this was taking place at. Yeah, not gonna lie, I typically am not too big of a fan of women's combat sports. But for this one, yeah, I think I would go with Calvillo. I didn't realize that Andrade was so I think that she lost at flyweight, which is 125. Now she's going up another weight class. Her natural weight class is 115. That's where she was best. That's where she had title fights that I thought she could have won.
Yeah, and I think that, when it comes to women's UFC, it's when it comes to women's UFC, I think that all of us are kind of, we realize what's going on. It's not as deep. It's not as deep as the men. There are interesting bouts. There's obviously very dominant and really good female fighters. But we're still kind of waiting for the entire roster to fill out. I think that's kind of the way most people feel about it, at least. So I did just look it up. I don't know why they have the weights list at 134 here. It is at flyweight. So they weighed in, it looks at 126 and 126 for both of them. So I'm not sure what weight they have listed there, but it will be taking place at flyweight officially.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I do still think that Andrade belongs at strawweight. And so, yeah, I'm going to pick Calvillo for this one.
There you go. Now we got going from women's to a big heavyweight bout right here. If I can find it. Boom. Curtis Blaydes versus Rozenstruik. What do you think about this one? The big mashers in there.
Yeah, this fight definitely has some heavy, wow, pun intended, heavyweight championship implications in it. Loser of this is going to be eliminated from the title picture for quite a while, I think. The winner takes a big step forward. Both of these men, these are top-level heavyweights right here. Both of these men have only lost to 2 men in the UFC, and both of them have lost to Francis Ngannou. Blaydes by TKO twice, Rozenstruik with that brutal knockout in the first fight back from COVID. Man, what a highlight that was. God. I've watched several other takes on this one, other people making predictions, and they seem to favor Rozenstruik. Other UFC YouTubers favor Rozenstruik, although Blaydes is the Vegas favorite. I'm going to pick Curtis Blaydes in this one. The reason why he lost to Derek Lewis was because he made a huge technical error. He shot in for a takedown from too far away without setting it up. And Derek Lewis was looking for the uppercut, and he caught him. Now, it's true that Rozenstruik has had 2 TKO victories since he lost to Ngannou, but I don't think he's going to knock out Blaydes. This is a 3-round fight. I think Blaydes is going to be able to get a takedown. He's not going to make that mistake again, and I think he's going to survive the 3 rounds, not going to get knocked out, and I'm picking Curtis Blaydes to get the victory on this one.
Yeah, and Blaydes is not a heavy favorite, but he is favored by a pretty decent margin. He's minus 340 right now in Vegas. So definitely the favorite. Not as much as we're going to see some of these ones later on here. But yeah, it should be interesting. I think Curtis Blaydes will come away with the victory there. Now, this one may be getting more talked about than any other, even though it doesn't really have any sort of title implications or anything like that, because it's the return of Nick Diaz, who right now it's almost even lines right now between Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler. What are your thoughts about this? Nick Diaz making his return to UFC. He's been gone for 5, almost 6 years now.
Yeah, about that. And he was suspended for smoking marijuana after his last fight, which, again, I think is such a ridiculous rule, a 5-year ban for something that's not even a performance-enhancing drug. But, yeah, a lot of, obviously, the backstory here, 17 years ago, they had their first fight, Nick Diaz winning by knockout, which is very uncharacteristic at the time. It is a very even line. I'm going to take Robbie Lawler because of his experience. I think his experience is going to shine through. The main thing I want to say here is that I'm not quite as excited for this one as a lot of MMA fans are. I was hoping Diaz was going to come back and fight Masvidal. When that one started to gain a little bit of traction, I was super hyped for that one because Nick Diaz hated Jorge Masvidal's comments about how he wanted to baptize Nate Diaz in that fight back in Madison Square Garden. And Nick was saying, no, you don't talk that way about my little brother. And I thought it would be really cool for him to come in and have that possible revenge fight against Masvidal. So that's where my mind is. This one, it's cool. They're both, very close to retirement, but I think that Lawler's experience and his recent octagon activity will carry him to victory.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a lot to ask for Nick Diaz to come. He doesn't look good. He doesn't look good. He doesn't sound like he's super excited to do it in a weird way. When I was listening to a couple of the media spots, we'll see. It almost seems like he's doing it for the money. You know what I mean? Which isn't, yeah, sure. Of course, that's why we're all doing a lot of things in life. But when it comes to something like this, when it comes to fighting the octagon, I don't know if his head's where it needs to be and if his body's where it needs to be. And certainly that experience, I think Lawler's going to take it, even though Vegas does have it at pretty even odds, but an interesting return to be sure. Now, what'll probably be the least interesting fight of the night is definitely Valentina versus Lauren Murphy. Now, Valentina is absolutely dominant. And this is what I'm talking about with women's MMA. Like, I love watching Valentina fight. I love watching people like Rose Namajunas fight. You've got a couple like real big names, but then it kind of drops off a little bit in my mind as far as the depth of MMA and UFC. But they have been doing things to improve that. You know, it has been getting better over the years, and that's what it needs to happen. With Valentina, it's kind of like at this point, who does she fight? And now she's fighting Lauren Murphy, and I think she's minus 1,800 in Vegas right now, something like that. So what do you have any thoughts on this fight?
No, Shevchenko is going to win. And yeah, there's not much more to it than that. I will say, you know, you say that there isn't too much depth in women's UFC. I would say, except at strawweight, that's the best women's division by far. You got Joanna Jędrzejczyk, you got Weili Zhang, Rose Namajunas. The division runs pretty deep there. And yeah, Michelle Waterson, my favorite.
Yeah, that's true.
There are a lot of good fighters at 115. Anything above that, it's just pure domination from whoever is champion right now.
Yeah, and I think that's for Valentina. It's where she's at. Like, does she? What do they do with her? Do they convince her to make a move? You know what I mean? Do they convince? Do they get some type of if she moves up or whatever? I don't know what they have planned for her, but I know they still want to have her fight because she is a big draw and she is fun to watch. So
she's just too small to fight Nunes. She's fought her twice, lost by decision both times. She's just a little bit too small.
Yep. So we'll see what happens. I think we all know what will happen with this. The real question would be what happens to Valentina after this. You're saying head kick?
That's what I'll say, yeah.
Head kick does it in. All right, there you go. That's the prediction. You got to hear head kick. And now the main event. Now, for me, I think I've always thought that Brian Ortega was a little hyped up. Like, that's just how I felt about him. Like, he wouldn't look like super impressive to me, but then he'd just pull it out. You know, he'd have a crazy finish. He'd do something when he needed to get it done. What are your thoughts about this main event? Who walks away with this title?
Well, that's his style, dude. That's what he wants to do. He goes in there, makes you think that you're safe, and then he catches you in a triangle. That's why his nickname is T-City. But overall, I'm picking Volkanovski on this one. I'm going to trust the transitive property in this one. That Volkanovski beat Holloway, Holloway beat Ortega, therefore Volkanovski beats Ortega. I know it's not always true. I know styles make fights. It's all about matchups. However, I think Volkanovski is I think that he's just on a higher level than Ortega. I think that he's got a very low center of gravity. He's going to be able to avoid like a shoot-in takedown. He'll be able to sprawl, keep Ortega away from him. And I think he is going to keep it on the feet, keep it as a striking contest. And I think Volkanovski's striking is a level above Ortega's. Volkanovski I pick him to win by decision.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, like, Ortega's got like all the talent in the world. You know what I mean? Like, he has it, but to me, Volkanovski just seems very consistently. He's just very consistent whenever I see him out there, like the performances he gives. So that's kind of how I see it. I think
Who
Volkanovski
do you think won the last fight, Volkanovski versus Holloway?
Volkanovski, I thought so.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I would give it to Holloway.
Like, well, and Holloway, I think, was that Brian Ortega's, not his last fight. Let me check. It was.
No, Ortega fought the Korean Zombie most recently after a 2-year layoff.
Yeah, that's, 2 years between that Holloway loss and then him fighting on this one here. So we'll see. I think, what did you think about this when it happened, the Max Holloway Ortega fight? Do you think a lot of people were shocked when Holloway won that?
Dude, if you go to they've uploaded that, the UFC has uploaded that as a free fight on YouTube right now. If you go to read those comments, everyone's saying that Holloway was robbed. People are saying, "Oh, I couldn't even rewatch this because I felt so bad that Holloway was robbed." I thought, so yes, Volkanovski landed more strikes in that fight, but Holloway, he had the bigger moments.
A lot, yeah.
He had 2 like half knockdowns, I guess you could call them, where he really made Volkanovski stumble in the first 2 rounds. But yeah, I thought like he did more work and his shots were a lot harder. And I thought Holloway should have won.
Yeah. Well, either way, this is going to be, I hope it's a really good fight between Volkanovski and Ortega. I do think Volkanovski walks away with it. But overall, from top to bottom, a pretty good card. You know what I mean? When you're talking about a numbered UFC event, like you said, not the best pay-per-view we've ever seen, but far from the worst, with a lot of interesting storylines and interesting bouts. So, but thanks for hanging out. Go ahead, T-Ref.
Yeah, just want to say that Dan Hooker fight is going to be on ESPN2, the prelims. So as you're watching football today, the superior form of football, college football, make sure you click over to ESPN2 at least once today and give that fight a watch.
There you go. Well, yeah, man. Well, thanks for hanging out with me and breaking down some of these fights. Looking forward to it. UFC is one of the things that has remained very consistent throughout this entire woke sport, throughout the entire pandemic. They have done everything they can to remain true to what they are. I think a lot of people appreciate that. If you haven't watched UFC, go turn it on. Like you said, a lot of these prelims are available on ESPN or, not pay-per-view, right? So you can get a taste of it, before you make that decision to pay a lot of money to go watch a couple fights. But thanks for hanging out. Make sure you catch these fights tonight. Subscribe to Sports Wars, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and we'll talk to you later.